So now we're done with our question view. We're already done with our question model that we implemented earlier on. The only remaining part of the puzzle for our MVC application quest is the controller itself. So let's go ahead into the controllers folder, and I'm going to go ahead and add a new file. Now, once again, you can call your file anything you want. I'm just going to select a Swift file, next, and type in whatever name I want for this particular file. I'm just going to call this maybe exam controller and create next. And now it's going to create a blank file. Let's go ahead and import the UI kit and create a class called exam controller, which is of type controller, so it is going to inherit from UI view controller. There we go. Now, currently you can see that you have exam controller, but you also need to create this controller on the storyboard. So let's go to the storyboard, and you can see the storyboard is completely blank. I'm going to click on this search toolbox library button and search for something called a UI view controller. Let's go ahead and add a UI view controller onto our storyboard. There we go. Now by default, you can see the view controller. If you click on the view controller icon over here and go to the identity inspector, you can see the class is set up to a default UI view controller. So we have to bind this to our view controller exam controller, which is pretty easy because you just have to type in exam controller and that's it. All right. So now this particular view controller is going to be controlled by a class that we already created called the exam controller. Another thing is that this is not our initial point of the application, like the initial view controller. So let's go ahead and set that up also. So if you click on this one over here, I always forget the name, the attributes inspector, you can select the is initial view controller, and now you have this arrow pointing to the view controller, which is basically saying that this is the starting point of your application. Great. So what exactly what we want to display in this particular view controller? Well, we want to display our question view, which we created earlier on. Okay, so let's go ahead and add something called a UI view. Now, if you try to search for your question view, obviously it's not going to show up because this is Apple Library Toolbox, so you can only see the controls that are designed by the Xcode and the iOS team. So you can see UI view. I'm going to drag the UI view somewhere in the center. Let's go ahead and color it with some other color. So I'm just going to color it to be bluish so that I can see this. I want this to appear on the center. So I want my question view to appear on the center. So we need to put some constraints on it. So let's say horizontally in the center and vertically in the center, and add these two constraints. But at present, it doesn't know about the size of this particular UI view. So let's go ahead and put some size on this also. So width and height. Okay, now it looks good. But this is just a plain UI view. This is nothing to do with a question view. So we need this to be our question view that we just created earlier. So if you go over here to the identity inspector, you will see that the UI view is set as a base class, a custom class. So in order for this view to be controlled by your class called question view, you will simply say question view over here. And now you build it, and now this will display as a question view. But currently there is no IV outlet associated with this particular question view. So if you go to the exam controller, we can actually go ahead and create an IV outlet, and we can call it question view, which is of type, yep, you guessed it, question view. Now let's go ahead to the storyboard, expand our view controller document outline, and then if you right click, you will see in the IV outlets, now you have something called a question view. I can simply drag and drop it over here. So now I can access the question view, which is displayed on the screen, inside my view controller by using a property called question view. So now I will go ahead and implement the viewDidLoad function. So super.viewDidLoad. And I can have access to the question view dot, and you will see that I have access to all the different properties of the question view, including the content view and the question text label. So let's go ahead and set the question text label to something is Earth round. Now let's go ahead and run our application and see if it can display our question view on our screen or not. So you can see that definitely it can display the particular view on the screen, but for some reason it didn't display the label on the screen. So we need to figure out what exactly is going on. So let's go ahead and first check out our question view, that if we missed out on something. And you will notice that we forgot to add the content view to our base view, which is the question view. So let's go ahead and add it over here. Add subview, and we're going to add the content view. Let's go ahead and run it again. And hopefully this time we will see the text also appearing. So there you have it. This is the MVC design pattern. This is the default design pattern in your iOS applications. Now, usually you won't really go ahead and do things this way, but maybe you do. Maybe you will create your controls all dynamically. Maybe you will take help from the XIB nib files. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll simply just drag and drop some controls on the view itself and work like that. But I use this approach so I can show you all the three different things: the controller, the view, and the question, which is a model, in separate instances as a separate entities. So hopefully with this information you can go move forward and create your MVC iOS applications.